Israel Adesanya versus Pereira. Now, we know the narrative going into this. We know the pre-built-in highlight reel that is Alex Pereira, and we've seen the devastation that is caused Israel Adesanya before. And that's a major part of this fight for both of them, not just Adesanya, because the narrative coming into this is all the pressure is on him. It's their third time of meeting. He's lost twice already. He's holding his legacy, his undefeated streak at 185 pounds. And here is this wrecking ball that is Alex Pereira, who has been set out and unleashed to kill and to dethrone the champion, which is true. And that's going to be lingering on the back of his mind. And come fight night, that's going to be a massive question, because we know how mentally strong Israel Adesanya is. But having to go back out and face that man that he's already fought, that last time they saw each other standing across in a combat setting, he put him in a position where he's KO flatlined on the floor with an oxygen mask on. Now, even for the mentally toughest, that's a lot to deal with. I've heard a lot about Michael Bisping speak about it before. But this is what's so impressive. And this to me is what defines legacies. And we look at people like the Michael Bispings. And even recently, you have a look at someone like Belal Muhammad. Now, people always laugh when I mention him, but you have to remember the things that he's done are very impressive. And you look at Vicente Luque, flatlined him in their first encounter, then came out very recently and beat him. So that's going to be playing on his mind. And that's going to be occupying a lot of his preparation as he comes into the fight. Whether he likes it or admits it or not, is going to be there. And how does he deal with that? How does he come out and face that man in these tiny little gloves and go to work and go to execute his game plan? Because it's going to be difficult, especially when you have Alex Pereira there, who's 6'4", 220 pounds probably on fight night, and has that one hit or quit knockout power. It's a difficult task. But when you have a look at it on the flip side as well, Alex Pereira is not in a significantly comfortable position. Now, of course, he's been fast-tracked to the title. He's been fast-tracked with the pressure of everyone saying he's the man. He's the person to beat the great Israel Adesanya and tear down that legacy and the title defences to come. He's that person to bring that exciting fighter that we've seen out again. He's that man to knock out the current champion. He's been fast-tracked to a position where he's had relatively little to no experience in the octagon. Because that's going to be a massive point coming into this. No matter how confident he feels, there also will be a part of him that knows he has only had 7 mixed martial arts fights. He's 6-1, and now he's fighting one of the pound-for-pound best in the world. Now, you can look into that kickboxing match as much as you want, and obviously that tells somewhat of a story, but it doesn't tell the full story. When you go back and you have a look at those two fights, if you actually go and watch them, you'll see the first fight, that's a toss-up. It's an absolute toss-up, and a lot of people could argue that Israel Adesanya should have got his hand raised. So that's one fight that was pretty close, that the history books doesn't show. It just shows that red L, and that's all you can sometimes see. And that's the same for his knockout as well. Now, that's taking nothing away from Alex Pereira. It's one of the most devastating left hook knockouts you're ever likely to see, and it's a thing of beauty. I watched the Dan Hardy breakdown on it, and understanding the nuances and the finer details to Alex Pereira's striking is so fascinating and intriguing, and we'll come on to that in a second. My point is, up till that point, it was very competitive. It was very close. Alex Pereira even had a standing 8 count where he didn't quite know what was going on. And in another alternative universe, he could have been out for the count there and the ref could have stopped it there and then, because he looked very, very wobbly on his feet. So the question coming into this has been, of course, if he can knock him out in kickboxing, then there's every chance that he can do it in MMA. We know the power that translates. But you could also say the same for Adesanya. You could also say the same for the other way round, because how about if they were 4-ounce gloves and Adesanya was touching him as much as he was in their second fight, landing as bigger shots? Is he still there standing and eating shots, especially when the ref can't intervene? Can Izzy catch him after he's entered range? Catch him with a counter attack, 3-4 punches together that we've seen very often, maybe stun him with a head kick? then jump on him and finish him, I think it's definitely a possibility. Of course, we've seen how well Alex Pereira's skills translate over. We've seen that. A flying knee in his debut. We've seen the knockout of Sean Strickland. So there's not that question there of, can he do it in the cage? We know he can. But this is a 5-round fight. These are championship rounds that this man has not faced, that potentially it won't get into. But he knows that is a very likely possibility. And he knows that he's never been to those places before. Now, do I think that Israel Adesanya is going to utilise grappling? I don't think so. I don't think he's going to. I think in our heads we're painting this idea that because of his experience in mixed martial arts, he can go out and grapple him and wrestle him. And it's not that he's incapable of that. He is a purple belt in the gi. He does train jiu-jitsu. He comes from CKB. Very good takedown defence. He's built a career off of that. We know that they put in relentless work down there. They're not missing out key aspects of the game. So we know there'll be a well-rounded grappling game in there. You look at his wrestling coach, one of the best in the business. So is that on the cards? Is that on the table? I don't think so. I don't think so. Can I see a world where he backs him up against the fence and maybe ties him up potentially, maybe looks for some knees or elbows in the clinch and maybe tries to wear on him and just use a little bit of that savvy, that nous that he has? Because let's be honest, when they're tied up and maybe he's got his underhooks and he's controlling him against the cage, he's not going to be able to have that ability to land that knockout shot when they close the distance. And that's the thing with Pereira, and I think that's the game plan Izzy's going to have to implement. He has to be all the way in or all the way out. And we're talking about someone here, we're talking about the champion that is arguably one of the best ever at doing that, controlling that range, controlling that distance, making sure he's in range to attack you and chew up that front leg, which I believe is just naturally going to be a game plan of Izzy, especially with someone who operates solely on those powerful shots, just one at a time, plodding along on that front foot, heavy, foot turned in, screwed in, ready to just coil up that jab and coil up that left hook and put all his weight and all his hips into it. So naturally that's going to be the game plan. And we know that Izzy likes to set up his strikes and his attacks off of that. So that's interesting. It's an interesting one. I don't think he's going to grapple him, no. Of course we know that Pereira has to land that shot. And like I was saying about Dan Hardy, going into the finer details of his striking, the thing that he does so well is throws his left hook slightly off rhythm, slightly off beat. Typically in a combination, the shot previously, loads the next shot. And it's all about using momentum and using rhythm side to side and using your body as a coil and a spring-loaded gun almost. But he doesn't quite do that. He just changes his left hook slightly off rhythm, slightly off beat, so that your brain that's hardwired in to feel like you're waiting for that left hook doesn't quite come at the time you're thinking. You relax a little bit, your hands maybe drop, or maybe they come away from your face. Bang. That's when it catches him, and you can see that in his previous fights, and it's really, really clever. Now, I think Adesanya's defensive striking is going to be enough to nullify that. However, we're never going to know until Saturday night. So that's the big question. Is it as simple as Alex Pereira needs to land one shot? I think it can be. I think that question is as simple as this fight needs to be. He needs that one clean shot. Now, will Izzy allow that? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. And he's got all the experience on his side to mitigate those problems. And if he hadn't have done it so many times previously, then I would be favouring Alex Pereira more. He has every capability to win this fight 100%. However, we have to operate off of what we've seen. And what we've seen time and time again is Adesanya execute his game plan down to the last minutiae detail. Now, have they been as good a kickboxers as Alex Pereira? No. But we can look at the Yan fight, and although he didn't win, when you have a look at how that played out in the feet, very similar weapons with Jan Blachowicz and Alex Pereira. They've got that devastating left hook. They've got devastating power, powerful body kicks. Very similar opponents. Now, of course, Pereira's a step up, I would say, in striking. But we saw how capable Jan was as well. So he's no mug on the feet. And Izzy still stayed safe. And he does have a good chin. But the last thing that I'll end on is, however this fight goes, there's one thing for sure, is Alex Pereira is not going to quit on himself. If he's down on points, if he's potentially injured, if he's been stung with a couple of shots, this man was raised from the literal mud. The life that he has gone through from childhood up till being an aggressive alcoholic and overcoming that and finding a path through fighting. This man is not one to give up on himself, and it's going to take a lot to get him out of there. So Izzy's really going to have to switch him off, and if he doesn't, he's going to have a wild Potang hunting him down for 25 minutes, and I cannot wait. I'm going to say this is going to be a vintage Israel Adesanya performance. I think it's going to be one of his best ever. I genuinely believe that. I think he's maturing at a place now. I think he's understanding the game better than he ever has. And he's got this incentive. He's got this chip on his shoulder and the thought in his back of his mind to get him motivated more than any other fight has done recently. Because you need new challenges when you're at the top of the tree. And he's got a lifestyle that he wants to maintain. So he's got something that is driving him like no else, and I think this is going to just be a showing of how next level Israel Adesanya is and how much we take him for granted. When you look that this is his 14th fight in 4 years, it's absolute insanity the frequency he fights with, and we have to sit back, marvel and respect it. Can Alex get it done? Very potentially, but I'm going to go Izzy on this one.